Visit ZABALGAMEZ.com. That's ZABAL Games.com and sign up.
Decentralized energy, let's talk about Web3.
Welcome back, everybody, to another ZABAL Games Workshop. I'm here today with topocount. How we doing today, Topo?
Hey, it's all pretty good. I'm excited to be talking about the stuff that I've been working on and just giving my perspective on Farcaster stuff and building on it. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. Do you want to give everyone a little bit of background, who you are, how you kind of joined the Neynar team, and like maybe, I have a question on top of that about like maybe the transition. So I'm kind of curious about that, but we'll get into that after your intro.
Yeah, so I've been like a smart contract engineer for a good chunk of my career at this point. I basically started my tech career in Ethereum. I guess people would call that like EVM or maybe crypto at this point. But and now and I've kind of like worked my way through like coordination tools and getting to work on a platform which was originally just Neynar that facilitates people building stuff was like really cool. I still work on like the data products side, and like the API and webhooks but like now that we've kind of now that we're running Farcaster, I've gotten the chance to work on Snapchain itself and the protocol, and it's been like something I've wanted to do for a good chunk of my career. It's been a career goal of mine to work on a code base like Snapchain, and to something in Rust that is decentralized and kind of a big challenge on that front. And like I'm doing it a lot sooner than I thought I was, which is like a dream come true. And I'm excited to like give it a lot more attention than it was getting towards the end of like Merkle's tenure on it. I think Merkle was really working into growth hacking and didn't see a lot of dividends from that on Snapchain and kind of pivoted away from working on it so much. So yeah, and we kind of see it as part of the whole process if we want to get more people building on this ecosystem. So yeah.
I love it. I think Snapchain is a very interesting. Just where tell us more about it if you wouldn't mind for anyone who hasn't heard of it.
Yeah, so Snapchain is like the underlying implementation of like the Farcaster protocol that accepts all of your messages, or casts, likes, follows, and like distributes them to all the clients. So I think like the it's like so this is like it's a fundamentally interesting thing for people who are like crypto nerds, because it is like a completely open social backend that anyone can really like inspect or build on, and see like what's really going on, and that presents its own set of challenges, which I'm sure we'll get into. But basically what it means is like anyone can basically build tooling to interact with people on the Farcaster app, or Q, or formerly Base, the Base app. So like and that's really cool. Like you can build like different front ends, and we'll talk about how I think that can be more achievable than it has been in the past. And I think it's important to also highlight that like we are now like working and planning in earnest to like move more of like what is inside Farcaster, the client and the app, onto Snapchain. So like I think we've had an FIP open for a while on blocks. I'm working on. We've been talking about channels a lot, so there's a lot to unpack there too. Yeah. on the timeline. And so like that means that like I think that like the multiplayer environments that like channels present are making those, like bringing those outside of the Farcaster app will unlock a lot of like the stuff that people want to make on Farcaster. So yeah.
1,000,000%. So that's cool. I like that overall goal of moving things that are on the client to the protocol and letting anyone be able to leverage some of that tooling, because I think that helps grow the ecosystem for client building. And I know you wanted to chat a little bit more when we were talking before a little bit about it, but as well as just like the conversation that have been happening over the last few months around client building. What's your kind of vision for clients going forward? What do you, in addition to giving that opportunity for some of the things that the Farcaster app has natively in it to clients by bringing some of those things on Snapchain? What else are you kind of thinking and build on the top of?
Yeah, so I mean, I casted about this like I think a few working days ago at this point, but there are some communities and developers in those communities that are using, I think, channels in some really interesting ways, where rather than trying to build like a whole client, they just focus on a subset of activity on the protocol that is like mostly centered around a topic like skateboarding or football, like association football, not American football, and or like a social club like Mug Club, and like I think that is like much more tractable to build as like an indie dev than like an entire like database to support all the activity on the protocol. I think we're planning out and arguing, you know, in a friendly way about like what we want, how we want to bring certain primitives onto the protocol, and what we want to and like what tie-ins we may or may not want to have with like on-chain primitives to make curation and I guess like administration or moderation a little bit more legible for folks. So like I think that, and like I think we incrementally want to ultimately bring channel like membership, moderation, users who are moderators, and eventually followers on chain, onto Snapchain, not on chain, and that will become a lot more like usable for everybody. And we basically have a bunch of like APIs for the Farcaster client right now. We want to bring a bunch of that stuff onto Snapchain itself, because it's it's like a lot of those primitives like blocks right now, especially like if you have to use if you have to, like, blocks are not working the way they should, and that's like a whole different discussion where like I think if you unblock someone, it's hard to
block in terms of blocking an individual.
Sorry?
You mean blocking an individual, correct?
Yeah. Not like not blockchain blocks, but like social blocks. Yeah. Sorry. So yeah, I've been rambling a bit, but I think like I think it might have been Userstein who said this well, and probably other users who I'm not crediting well right now. But like I think that we need to kind of like lean into the fractal potential and the emergent potential of like budding communities and activity, like different like niches and use cases, and enable those. I think that's like that's the biggest thing, the biggest differentiator we have going for us, as far as like how we're positioned and what the stack can do. So yeah.
I love that. I think there's a lot of fun things to poke at there, but there's definitely this benefit of having a protocol that anyone can kind of come in and build their own front end. And I like the idea of the fractal potential of getting lots of different individuals to not only create their own clients, but as you're having that conversation, create collaborative clients that maybe is a community of theirs, but then also another community that's out there. And then there's this client specifically for those two communities to emerge together. And that could be really interesting as well. And it could be like part of an event that like builds semi-proto DAO out of that, right? Like something happens and then it kind of continues on after the event, but it's not like its own thing in and of itself. It kind of started at a point, but then it's kind of a continuation, right? As opposed to this one-time thing. And that's kind of where I see things like channels being a really cool thing, where it's like, okay, like this thing happened, we're making a channel for it, we're going to do these things, and then they're always viewable in the past. Or if people want to rebuild off of any of those ideas, it's like you kind of continue that discussion or conversation in a channel.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think that there is I there's so many places I want to go with this right now. Um, that so I'm a user of this like search engine called like Kagi. It's like I'm not going to get into too much of like why, because I don't want to be too much of a shill, but it's like they have this like free like little landing page called like the small web that is curated by users and only by users, and like you can't add your own website unless you've recommended like 3 websites on there that don't exist yet. And the idea is like to kind of bring that like web 1.0 feel back, where you're just browsing people's blogs, browsing informational sites, playing like indie games that don't have a ton of ads and all that kind of stuff. And like I love that ethos of like building like a human first web experience that is like more about like the user's like sense of discovery and connection with the people they're interacting with online. So like kind of like evolving that to like, you know, bringing like that initial small web feel from like web 1, bringing that to like a social experience. And I feel like we can do that pretty well. That like and I think that like there's been a lot of hay made in the last few years over like, you know, so-called like read write own, and just like, you know, a user sovereign internet based on web3, and like none of that has materialized. So like
100%.
I think we're still trying to solve that problem. So yeah.
I like that. I like that as the kind of goal, because there is so many things that you can touch on that Farcaster does bring, like the ability to, if you do get quote unquote censored by one protocol, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't still interact with the network as a whole, which is really cool. Kind of
Yeah.
the ability to fight against deplatforming of traditional social media platforms, right? And being able to kind of say, okay, like there's another place like we can all go because XYZ platform isn't the right one for us. And their tools are getting better at building those things as well. So I don't have a question in there specifically, but I do want to dive into a little bit more about Snapchain. I know you said you guys were thinking of bringing some more things over. Do you want to give a kind of like list of the things that Snapchain has right now that users can tap into when they tap into the protocol?
Yeah. So right now, what we track are like users, of course, and their profile information, follows, casts, all the stuff that you see, at like a very primitive level. And we have some like really rudimentary APIs for those things available on Snapchain itself too. The issue is that like very little of that information is like fully hydrated with like the embeds being fleshed out, or like quote casts, embedded casts in like a quote cast being fleshed out, stuff like that. So that's like why Neynar initially kind of like existed, was to like provide like APIs that gave you the full fat Farcaster information. So like I think that like what we are trying to do is like make like Farcaster, or make Neynar's tooling like better, or more I think accessible in the absence of like having this information on like Farcaster. So like that's like one like kind of affordance we're offering. I think the other thing that like I just added recently is gasless keys. So like keys, so like the way let's talk about how signers work.
Please do, yes, because I'm very confused by that part, and that's why I'm like, I'm not doing it like in my setup, because I'm like, I don't know enough about it. So please enlighten us.
Yeah. So like there is like a really nice way to get started with signers and keys like baked into. I'm going to use those words interchangeably right now, so
Okay.
sorry about that. Baked into Neynar, and that's what a lot of people end up doing, where like it's like it's confusing like what you need a signer for and like how they interact. And like I think as like a developer, it's like the highest learning curve to ascend to get started. But basically how it works is they made like I think the Merkle team made like a pretty opinionated and in my opinion good decision to offload all actual signature work from the user to the developer. So what happens right now, if you're not using like Snapchain signers, which are like what I like to call gasless keys, I'll call them Snapchain signers from now on. But are using on-chain signers. Like on-chain signers are like what shipped with like the original with Snapchain originally. And like what you have to do is like go to a smart contract and present a payload signed by the user to like I think Optimism, and then that basically gives you access to the signer in that payload, and that is complicated because you have this like so basically what the user is doing is like signing off on you submitting messages to the protocol on their behalf. Now there are a few things in Snapchain signers that we fixed that like I think are kind of like rough edges for on-chain signers. One is they don't expire. Two is only the developer can revoke those signers. Not it's right easily right now. It's really it's like not you can do it in the app, but like it's not obvious to users that like actually yeah it's not obvious to users that like they need to or should revoke these signers because they never expire. So if like an app goes dormant, and we've had those signers are just kind of like floating in random parties could in theory get access to them and sign messages on your behalf. So like with Snapchain signers, what we've done is we've first gotten them off of like an EVM blockchain. So like now they are entirely native to Snapchain and they don't cost any money. They don't cost a transaction.
I see, and that's why you're calling them gasless signers.
Yeah. We use like similar like signing primitives, EIP 712, to like generate the payloads that Snapchain then decodes, but they effectively never go on chain. And so they're free in that sense. They expire after 90 days of no use, which is like a security affordance that is like supposed to protect, intended to protect users, and is a convenience for developers. Every time a signer presents a message to the protocol, the lifetime of that signer is extended another 90 days. So like that way you kind of have the best of both worlds. You as a developer don't have to manage like OAuth 2 refresh sequences, but like you also don't have to worry about like these signers expiring on you. So those are like the big wins with Snapchain signers, and like I think we're still migrating to using them on the Farcaster protocol, and we will eventually sunset on-chain signers, but that's not coming for a while. So like you can use either right now, and it's fine. But like if you want to like provide some extra security and user respecting affordances, like I highly recommend using the Snapchain signers right now. So yeah.
Interesting. So when a developer creates these new Snapchain signers, then or signers in general, are they defaulting to that, or how does one differentiate one from the other right now?
They are separate. So one is entirely activated by submitting a message to Optimism, and then Snapchain picks up that on-chain transaction and allows messages from the signer in that payload to be submitted to Snapchain.
Like, how does a developer pick Snapchain signers to use? Like, what's the process of doing that? Is that just through Neynar or through their own, or I guess any validator? I don't know.
So you don't even have to use Neynar for this. All you need is like all you do is present the user with the payload, similar to like how
Oh, I
the existing
see.
docs present, the docs explain it, and then you submit a key add message to Snapchain, and then that message registers that key to the user who signed it. Another security affordance that we've kind of created is like you can only have one signer per given user, because they're free now. Like they cost nothing to generate. Unlike on-chain signers where like it costs money to register a given signer. Now, so a lot of apps use one signer for every user across all their users. Like now you have to generate a new signer for each individual user. And that's just like more just like it's blast radius protection. It prevents like if somehow a third party gets their hands on one signer, they don't have access to all these different users.
That's cool.
Yeah. So like it's as simple as basically doing the same thing doing something very similar that you do with on-chain signers, only you just submit the message to Snapchain, formatted a little bit differently, instead of on-chain, and then you're able to use that signer on behalf of the user who signed off on it. So
I got you.
yeah.
And you as a developer essentially put that in some window somewhere where the user is authenticating through that. And that gives you that just like it was before, but instead of it costing money, it just goes right to Snapchat. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you want to share some of the other back end upgrades and things you guys have done that are less things that people see, that are all the flashy things on the front of the feed?
Yeah. So I think we've minimized the memory footprint. I think both Hypersnap and Snapchain have done this. Now to run a node as a reader, it only costs like up to 4 gigabytes of memory to run a node, which is much more affordable than like the 32 or 64 it used to cost. And we've also we've also pushed some changes that make the consensus mesh around across all the validators much more resilient. And we like just like I've been running a validator node on testnet in Mumbai for like I think a couple weeks now, and just today I actually started running a validator node. I took one of the existing nodes from Merkle and moved it to Ireland. So now we have these like cross-continental consensus patterns occurring, which like is good for the network because it means that anyone can run a node. Like as we're onboarding more validators, which is, I think we're continuing to onboard more validators after Uno soon. We'll be able to allow them to run a node almost anywhere. In the world, and be able to like participate in consensus with them, which is I think pretty sick. So
Yeah, that's cool. That's one part of the decentralization, right? You can get users across a bunch of different places. That really adds users and then validators, right? The validators coming in at some of these other places is pretty cool. So I'm excited to hear more about that and see how that goes. What is the benefit of running a validator for Snapchain, let's say, than a traditional blockchain?
So I think running a validator kind of forces you to I always think of like the intellectual benefits of things because I'm a huge dork, but like it makes you understand what it takes to run a Snapchain node right now, which has its pros and cons. We're trying to make it more of a pro than a con. You get by default like maintainer level access to Snapchain, and I think like I think like not maintainer level access, but like some level of access to be determined as we generalize the protocol itself from like Snapchain into like a languageless specification that will facilitate the building of other clients of other Farcaster protocol implementations from scratch, basically. I don't know if there's like much incentive to do that right now, but we think it's important for decentralization that the specification exists outside of Rust and in like a plain protocol. specifications. So yeah. And I think that also makes it easier to reason about like what is expected of like a node that of like of an implementation basically. So I think we want to work. We actually discussed this internally. Like, what would it take to like get off of like the validator system? Which I mean, is I've heard it. I like to think of it as proof of authority, where like it's a permissioned like set basically, where like all the other existing validators have to agree to include you in the validator set in order for you to become part of it. And the big thing we need is like a larger community. If we have a larger community of people participating in on the protocol, wanting to run validator nodes, so like basically as more people participate on Farcaster as users, the idea is like more developers will become attracted to it, and we'll eventually have more liquidity and activity in the protocol to like build real incentives. But until that point, like we want to maintain like a relatively like high trust environment. We are decentralizing. We're in the process right now of making Neynar / like, you know, Farcaster itself like a non-majority runner. So basically the idea is like we want to bring in like value aligned validator runners who we have like trust and relationships with, trust to maintain like a high availability of their node, and like long-standing relationships like as far as community members, and then like as the protocol and user base grows, we can get away from the current consensus system and move to something that is truly permissionless. I think like a half measure step that I am researching doing right now is taking I think especially as the validator set becomes more pluralized and less Neynar, we want to move the control of the validator set onto a decentralized medium, out of the repo and onto ideally like a smart contract, and make it so like the process of joining and like or removing a validator, it becomes like a multi-sig process at least, and not just something that
Everyone has to.
I do in a repo, right?
Yeah.
Like a GitHub repo right now.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
That's interesting. That's cool. I love the kind of intersection that we're at right now with AI and blockchain, where I mean we've had many conversations about DAOs and how those can be super powerful primitives, but haven't been explored in enough as a whole. But it's really interesting to hear different parts of the commingling of those two things for me, and just kind of being able to see all of the different developer sides, from the super non-technical individual all the way to a software developer who's been doing it for 20 plus years. Yeah, what's the biggest thing for you right now as we're getting close to the end? What's the biggest thing on your mind right now?
Channels. I'm spending like a lot of headspace thinking about what we want to do with channels, and I spent some time last week, you know, online on Farcaster, just like trying to like stir the pot a bit.
Is that why the Farcaster intern posted about channels?
That wasn't me.
No,
That was like that was like the hive mind.
Were you prompting the Farcaster intern to
no
ask? Okay,
so actually what happened, it's the other way around actually.
Okay.
Not seeing the responses to like what the intern got, and like seeing like, and like just seeing all the spicy takes, which, you know, we want, made me want to like kind of like carry the flag for channels a bit. And not that I'm going to be like doing all the implementation, but just try to like drive the product evolution forward internally and see what happens. So like I'm trying to like move that forward. I'm getting a lot of positive responses and positive feedback. And I
One of the
think,
things,
yeah, go ahead.
I don't mean to interrupt you if you're finishing a point.
No, that's it. That's it. I'm pretty excited about channels right now.
One
I'm
of the
getting
things
sweaty
I
about it.
think that we as a community, but it is an idea as a whole that we can take from something like a Reddit is the
Yes.
ability to be pseudonymous, but also interacting by more of like the lurker status, but specifically around a specific thing, right? Like there's some people, there's not a lot of people here who are like, okay, like this is my only thing, like that's all I do,
Right.
because like there isn't that like incentive or way to do that, mechanism to do that well. But I do think that like being an admin of a channel, just like being a mod of a Reddit, the subreddit, which is its own mess of things to talk about, but it'd be a really powerful thing, especially when we take into these things of decentralization, where maybe you can add a token gate into your channel. Maybe
Yes.
these other like small things that could be things that you don't have on places like Reddit. And I don't know any other social media that is as unique like that. But the ability to come on immediately, start talking about something, being a foregone expert in it, and being able to actually like gain influence quickly, because I don't think that that's like really easy for a new person that has a lot of resources, value, and things to give, to then immediately get like, okay, like people are looking at this, unless someone specifically, like you look at someone like Luciano. I don't know if you've seen him on the feed, but he's been onboarding people like crazy. But
I love his presence. Whenever he
he's
pops up in my
posting about
feed,
it,
it makes me
right?
happy.
So
Yeah.
like that's huge, because then I'm like, okay, bing bang boom, I'm gonna follow and add a notification on for this person, because I know it's like A, from a trusted individual, and then B, it's an individual that needs that help and support right now, because they might be like doing some really cool stuff, but people might not be seeing it. So the ability for like me as a new user to come in and write something in Dash Books and be able to like have like really excited people about books that are like gonna check that out, right? Because this individual, that's like part of their daily routine. And there are some people that do that, but not enough. So like, how do we make, question for
Yeah.
everyone, like how do we make channels a part of our daily routine, a specific channel being, right? Like how can that be supported by someone like Topo here?
Yeah, exactly. Like I think that there is like, I think that you could approach it from like a pseudo perspective if you want to, or like a more like persona perspective too. Like one of the things that like I've always wanted to be on Farcaster, and I'm still working to become that type of poster, is like just a very unvarnished, frequent presence. Like I one of the things that like intimidated me in the early years of Farcaster was how much people were performing to kind of like build a follower count. And like I don't think it's worth like I think that was what the incentive mechanism was
Yeah.
was like cultivating from people. I think there was a lot of incentive to like build a following, build like a platform. And like what I want is I want to be like a type of like a persona who engages in my interests organically, finds fulfillment in the feedback and like in like praise or criticism I get and like what I'm doing. You could even be a dog. And you know, finds more interests and like and becomes like a you know, maybe someone who can share experiences with others. Like I went to like a pretty competitive college, and one of the things that I like to do on Reddit right now is like just provide reassurances to people in that college's subreddit, to people who are like struggling or like.
I've seen the post, which is hilarious. I don't do that but for separate reasons. But that's amazing. I like that. That's a good energy, because like that's something you don't get a benefit from, right? Like that's
Yeah.
like that basic like public good thing that can be like you're passing something on from knowledge that you've gained, right? passing through the college.
Like that was like, I mean, I don't want to get too into like what my experience in college was like, but like it was like a real like probably one of the most intense periods of my life, aside from like probably just having a kid. um and I think honestly just having a kid during COVID was like an extremely isolating and brutal experience, but like that's a whole different discussion. And uh I want to be the person that I needed when I was trying to get through something.
Yeah.
And like I hope that those people exist when I am a novice in various things that I want to do. So like
I
that's
think
kind
Farcaster brings out that energy, because
yeah,
I
exactly.
see that like basically everywhere where it's like someone will post a challenge about something and people will say, hey, I might not know this, but I know an individual who might know a little bit more about it, so I'm gonna tag them. And then like that flourishing of like unfinished idea, kind of like what we were saying before, of like just posting that, being unafraid to post a newbie question, and being able to then get not only feedback but then potentially reassurance and support from an individual on Farcaster saying like, hey, like I'll help you do this. The thing that Reddit does not have is that like retention and follow through of like, once you have an interaction with a random character on the internet, not a lot of people are following other Redditors, right? Like that
Yeah.
doesn't really happen. There's no like mechanism there. That's the like pro that Farcaster has, as well as having, you know, a whole blockchain backend and wallet, right? Where like you can permissionlessly
Yeah.
send money, which is a whole different, again, like, you know, don't want to have to talk all about crypto, right? But like it has its benefits that something like Reddit doesn't have. So I'm
I
excited.
think that will, I think as we find, I think, I mean, I don't want to start waving hands towards like the Clarity Act specifically, but uh like I think that we want to build in the direction where like the financial infrastructure like exists for like these like emergent like social orientations and like relationships have like real rails to do stuff with. And uh that that does, like you said, that doesn't exist anywhere else. But like I mean, in my experiences in crypto, like I've already seen this kind of like in a rough analog sense, where like I've worked on projects that have like really loose employment relationships, whether it's through like Raid
Yeah.
Guild or like on something like oh man, there was like this Protocol Labs project that I worked on called Source Cred, where we had like developers coming in from like other parts of the world and contributing to it. And I got to build, I had the pleasure of like building relationships with them and reviewing their code and cultivating them to a small degree as like developers. Most of them in a lot of ways are smarter than me. It's just they wanted to build on the code base and I got to help them do that. But like instead of like interacting with these people as like outsourced engineers, I got to interact with them on a pure person to person level on like Discord and in GitHub. And that was like immensely rewarding to just like meet people from different cultures, argue about, you know, random life experiences and get roasted as an American. It was
Yeah.
all a fantastic experience. And
You
I want to
you know
see
our
like more
perspective.
generative, I want to see like more like generative results, like something like source cred better come out of like what we're doing on Farcaster basically. So yeah.
I like it. Yeah, there's a lot of fun things you can talk about when you go to the like not even the technical rails, but just like Farcaster cultural support and everything around that. But we're getting, you know, close to the end. Do you have anything you want to share with everyone? You know, what's the like thing you want people thinking about and asking questions about, and where do you want people to come if they have things for you? What's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, I mean, at me on the timeline. Get in my DMs if you want to talk about like keys and you aren't content with like what's available right now, Snapchain signers, or signers in general. I'm happy to help out. I don't think we've had like any presence from the Neynar team come in and fill the gap like HorseFacts did on the timeline. And I don't know if any of us have the personality to do it like Horsefax did, but like we all have our like we all have our like areas of focus and our areas of expertise. Some of those are different. Some of those are different things. But like, and maybe we should make that more legible for people. But like, if you want to know who to talk to or who to add about a feature, and they're open to it, you know, because maybe some of them like to be heads down, which is good in its own way. You know, you can at me, or you can talk to like Quasia on the timeline. He's big on the wallet, and he sees like he's big on the wallet stuff. But there are other engineers that, you know, might not be as vocal on the timeline who, you know, might want to talk to you as well, depending on like what problems you're having. So yeah, and one thing I want to say is like I don't think the docs for Snapchain signers are like as good as they are for on-chain signers yet. So like I'm going to polish those up before the games start. I think that's something I should commit to. So that means this week. So yeah, I don't know. Zal, it's been a big pleasure just kind of like sharing what I spend almost all my time doing. And
You're gonna have to come back. You're gonna have to come back for the open build to actually build something with us, because I think that would be a lot of fun. Give a little demo, going from like A to Z of using some of these things. I think that'd be a lot of fun, and that'd be a good thing to share out.
Definitely, I would love to do that. That sounds awesome.
Awesome. Well, it was amazing having you on. Thank you so much for coming, joining in. Thanks for everyone who's listening in, and we'll see y'all soon. Cheers.
This is how keep it a Zali. From the Zal down, come proper. We eat rappers for lunch, and there's some left. We eat them for supper. I keep it a Zal, homie, a Zali. Heard the streets calling E3. I man to assignments. Now the whole word here about me.